Best part. There we go. Wow, I get to push the button. All right.
Hey everyone. Welcome to Tinderbox Meetup for October 15th. Fall is coming. I'm Mark Bernstein. I'm the designer of Tinderbox, and here's Michael Becker.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Tinderbox Meetup meeting. Just a preamble for those who have not been here before. What we do is we talk all things Tinderbox for the next hour and a half or so. We let new people that haven't been before introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what they're doing with the program project and their whole journey of note-taking, knowledge management, or whatever endeavor they may be undertaking. We then let the community chime in with any questions, topics that they have. And then if we have a formalized theme for the day, we jump right into that. And then if there's time permitting at the end, we talk about any other crazy stuff we're working on. Today, we actually do have a theme. It's called Parsing Notes Out of SKIM, a PDF reader. And so I'm going to walk us through that process. So we'll get there eventually. I don't see anyone new. So let's go to the next stage of the agenda, which is what are people working on? I mean, do they have any questions, comments that need help to get over it? Anybody? Or do we want to jump right into the whole skimming PDF notes?
Skim away.
All right, let's skim away. All right, I was just going to take some notes, but let me get that away. You guys are too fast for me this morning. So let me share my screen. Come on. Okay, so this has been something I've been playing with for a while, and I'll show you how it works. So there is an application called SKIM. Where's my browser? Where'd my browser go? Here's my browser. Okay, so there is an open source PDF reader called SKIM that can be downloaded from SourceForge. I can't say that I am terribly aware of it, but it seems to be functional, works well. More importantly, for many, it's free and supported and used by the community. So you download SKIM, and then SKIM ends up installed and in your applications folder, like so. Like any other application. So there's where's SKIM? There's SKIM. So you can then just go ahead and launch SKIM. Now, when you open up a PDF file in SKIM, like the one I have here, this is a report that I was reading earlier this week on the impact of privacy regulations, particularly GDPR, on firm performance. Just a little side note, I am totally into the whole privacy regulation implications for the market. So anybody who wants to have that side conversation with me, let's definitely do it. One of the key things I really like about this report is it goes through all the econometrics of understanding the impacts that regulations are having, particularly GDPR is having on European firms. And if I pull this out, I can highlight this right here, and I see that across all full samples, firms exposed to regulations experience an 8% decline in profits and a 2% reduction in sales. So I find that a fairly intriguing set of stats. And then we can go down here too and say an exception of large tech companies, which are really unaffected, but their performance measured. So that's also interesting. Maybe I color that slightly differently. Meanwhile, the negative impact on profits among small technologies is almost doubled. So that's another really interesting one that I might highlight. So again, it all depends on your strategy on how you want to go about highlighting your notes. Now, Tiago Forte and others, I don't know exactly if this is the right citation or source for that, have noted that sometimes you want to have a color scheme for your strategy and note taking. I wish I one day vow to be more consistent with that myself, but the consistency in your note taking pattern matching really is really helpful. So for example, for me, I've started to align to, if it's blue, it's a quote. If it's, in this case, it's not, as you can see from my inconsistency there, but you might want to pick a set of colors. So for instance, some people say red is something that's really important, but I disagree with it. Like orange is something that's, green, something that's important that I agree with. Yellow is just kind of a general note that I'm taking, but I might want to throw it away. blue is a quote. I mean, any of those kinds of nomenclatures are really important for your overall note-taking strategy, but also as it applies to as we if and when we get into the Tinderbox approach. So let me kind of leave it at that now, and then we'll circle back as we work through this. So, hey Peter, what are you doing on the beach? I like it. And you dressed appropriately too, which is very nice.
Yeah, you should see all the little battery-powered LEDs I have to get the lighting just right.
Yeah. All right. So, so long story short, you'll go through and you'll read your PDF. So let's kind of jump. I'm going to randomly jump down here. So let's I say I go like that, and let's make this one green. And I'll jump down a few more pages, and I'll go like that, and I'll make that one purple. All right. So you just see, so scattered throughout my PDF, I have some highlights that I've taken in the document. Everyone with me so far?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So now SKIM, this is not unique to SKIM. Pretty much many, another one of the PDF readers I really like is highlights. And I actually have a video on doing this example that I've done through the highlights PDF reader. And you can go ahead and export your items. So you basically, in the context of SKIM, you go up to the file menu, you hit, not revert, sorry. You go to the file menu, you hit export. And then when you select export, SKIM gives you the opportunity to export out through any number of different formats. So I can export these highlights as a PDF bundle, as what they call an archive, as SKIM notes as text, as notes as RTF, etc. And if I go, before I go doing that, and I'll just give you a little backdrop on how I ended up here. If you go to the SKIM manual, I can remember where it is. Yeah, and we type templates. Oops. Come on, find template. Okay, and this I can't remember where I found. So somewhere in here I found SKIM templates, and I can't remember what that was. And it gave me the basis of a SKIM template. And this is kind of the sleuthing exercise sometimes that it makes this stuff to work. Let me go see if I can find it. SKIM templates. You can see I didn't do all of, oh, here it is. Okay, so if I go here, I found this document that talks to me about the SKIM templates and how SKIM uses different, essentially keys for constructing a template. And in some ways, it's kind of analogous to Tinderbox exporter action code. I mean, it looks and feels familiar, and essentially it's nothing more than a pattern matching solution. I can't say that I'm terribly aware or attuned to what all that means, but what I was able to do is in about a half an hour or so deconstruct it. So if we go here, and I'll show you what's going to happen, I went ahead and I engineered what I call the TBX note template. And so let me give you an example of what I do. If I just take the text as notes as text template, and I hit replace and export, and I pull up my downloads folder, you'll see that SKIM has exported out all of the notes with this with the template that they have embedded in standard within the file, where every note's delineated by an asterisk, and then there's a comma, and then a page 2, and then you have your text. And so within their template, they basically instructed SKIM for every highlight, stick in an asterisk, give a comma, give it its page number, and then throw in some text. Now, I wanted to get a little bit more information out of that process. And so in reading that documentation, I was able to develop this SKIM template. So it essentially says notes.array sorted by page icon. Now, if you go to this Word file or this file here, you'll see that there are different types of, again, analogous to what we see in action code and export code, different types of ways to pull content out of SKIM. And so I'm just going to show you, and I'll let you deal with that later on if you want to find and pull out more extra stuff, but I'll show you what I programmed it to do. So what I'm telling SKIM is when you're using this TBX notes export template, what I want you to do is put it in a pound sign because I like working in Markdown, so I want to keep some consistency there. And give me the note name. Then I want you to give me the type, and the type name is the highlight. Then I want you to give me the color of the highlight. Then I want you to give me the page number. Then the URL, which the URL is essentially the URI of that page, and then give me the text for the note, and then close out your processing of that particular note, and then you'll move on to the next one. So that's what this template does. So now if you see here, I can now go back to my SKIM file and hit File, Export. All right, and now I go ahead and select my TBX template note, and let's give it a new name. We'll call this one 2, just so you can, come on. Go like 2, all right, so you can see the difference. And let's put the first one side by side. So if you see here, here's the first one, that's the standard SKIM template, and here is the second one. And the only reason why I'm doing this is not that I can't parse this first one, but consistency of format really helps with parsing, and making sure that I can keep it out. So what my template's doing is essentially saying, this is a note. Here's the type of the note. It's a highlight. Here's the color that's the note, the page number that's coming from, the URL for the page in SKIM, and then the text of the note. And you'll see it's each of those elements are prefixed by the designator of like page colon, color colon, etc. Now, here's something else that I found that was kind of interesting is SKIM actually uses, and I'm no expert in this, a concept called sRGB for delineating colors. Yes, Mr. Bernstein.
Yeah, I just wanted, what did I just do? Here I am. I just wanted to emphasize something that you just touched on that's extremely useful and not well-known technique. When you have control of both the export from something else and you're writing a parser for it, it's often very valuable to make things easy on yourself by exporting something that's really easy to parse, rather than doing extra work. If you've done this a few times, you'll have a sense of what's easy and what's hard to parse. But if you haven't, when you get to writing the parser, if you find something that's naughty, imagine how you could make life easier on yourself and then go back and change the export format. You can do that as many times as you need.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because when I first was originally doing this, I was playing with the standard export and it was fine, but I was finding some inconsistency. And I was also, if you were starting to write regex and let's say I wanted to be parsing on a comma, well, there's a comma here too. And so by, being able to, absolutely know with certainty the blocking out of the text, that makes it really easy. So now I know anything after following text colon is going to be the text I want. Then I'm golden and clear and again, break things apart and make it really super easy. And that took a bit to kind of make that comparison. And that's why I spent the extra half an hour to figure out how to make my own. Once I figured out I could do that, I spent the extra half an hour to make my own SKIM export template rather than messing around with their default one. Okay. And again, it was kind of fun in a geeky kind of way to figure that out too. When you have that eureka moment of, yay, it worked. So, all right, so that's what we did here. So now if you see the comparison of those two notes, at this point, we're essentially done with SKIM. I've exported out, but I will show you a little landmine that we'll circle back to in a minute. Okay, so I've done my highlighting in SKIM, I've exported my notes, and now I get to come over to Tinderbox. So this was my text file that I was preparing here. So in my Tinderbox file, I prepared a couple things that I'll share with you all when we're done. And I've added a few little of my own extra little tricks that I do. But let's start with just parsing out the SKIM file. and then we'll go to that. Now, let me start with the kind of, I'll take the business approach and give you the grand reveal result first, and then we'll go back to showing how it works. So I basically dragged that text file over from my computer into Tinderbox. And even if I had a new Tinderbox file, let's say I started with a new Tinderbox file like this, and I've got my downloads folder here, drag that over, and Tinderbox will dutifully pull in any text file and take the body of that text file and make it the body of the note. So you can start by doing this with any text file, and you'll see that I have each of the individual notes that are dutifully broken out by this designator #note. And that's the key that helps me know this is the separator of every note. So you can make this designator anything you want if you want to go in and mess with the SKIM export template. Now, if I go back to, oops, hang on, I've got too much going on. Let me stop sharing the screen real quick. Close this out, and I've got to close out some of my other Tinderbox files I have running. I've got about 7 running right now. Okay. By the way, too, just as a little side trick for anyone, if you are ever if you ever want to restart Tinderbox and not have it reopen up every file that it had previously opened up for whatever reason, maybe you have, like I just had 7 Tinderbox files running and I was slowing things down. What you do is you close down, you can force quit Tinderbox, and then when you go to reopen it, you hold the shift key down when you click on the application icon, and that will open up Tinderbox clean without all of the other files opening up. And it's a really nice way to kind of kill some background processes that you may not have wanted to have open up in the process. So here is my SKIM file that I've created. Here's the text file that I've just opened. We'll ignore everything else for now because I just want to show you what happens. I have this stamp in here I call parse SKIM notes, and watch what happens. Oh, before I apply the stamp, and this is the other kind of step that I would love to do. Mark, I don't know if you remember, at one point in the backstage, I had asked for or pleaded for the idea of having an export action code, and this would be a great example of being able to do that, because I was just muscle memory was going to be, hey, I want to go parse my SKIM note, but then I forgot a key step, and that the key step is I need to first explode it. So having an explode export would be really cool. Now I'm going to walk you through the wrong way to do it first, just so you can see it. So my natural tendency is I want to explode on the hashtag. So I'm going to go ahead and explode on the hashtag, and we're going to kind of step you through some of the steps that I've been doing that will have caused mistakes for me. So I first initially explode on the hashtag, and I go here and I see all these notes, but interestingly enough, I'm getting the word note in front of them, which is something I don't want. And I'm also seeing some other page breaks, which I'm not totally sure why it's coming out that way, but the explode is not the way I'd want it to do it. So then I would say, okay, well, maybe what I need to do is I want to explode on an explode space, and I want to remove the title text from the note. And so when I do an explode space, I then am able to get a clean set of notes, which is great and ultimately what I want. Another thing that you might see if I don't include that space in front of the hashtag and I explode for some reason, and Mark, maybe you can explain this to me because I don't know. It's not exploding, it's just at the hashtag. It's basically, if you look at the pattern here.
If you look at the, go back to the source.
Yeah.
I'll look at the URL of the first note near the end.
There's a hashtag in there, isn't there?
There is.
Right there. Yeah, perfect. So mystery solved, right? So there's a couple things, and that's the beauty of RegEx. So what we're doing in terms of the RegEx is, RegEx is looking for patterns to do the explode. And so more often than not, Tinderbox is doing exactly what you're telling it to do, and you just can't figure out why. And that's a perfect example of that, of me having missing that pattern. So another example that I figured out with that is if I hit the explode, I can also force Tinderbox to say, only do it start at the line. And so I found if I have it start at the line and look for that, I get the result I want, because this hashtag is not at the beginning of the line, so therefore it's not exploding there. So I felt that was just kind of a nice little, tutorial on RegEx too, while we're at it, to understand how you go about exploding. Now, again, Mark, a little side note, no pressure. Be really cool to be able to do that through action code, but that's fine. So now
you remember though that I believe 4 weeks ago we talked about a two-step parsing approach.
We did.
Which
that works too.
Which would work for this as well.
That works too, but I'm still trying to figure that out. And that's the one thing that I was asking Mark after this call. Mark and I have been playing with that parsing process now for about a week, and it's getting really close. And we're about to probably we'll have the grand reveal next week on the whole meeting note strategy thing, which is really cool. So yeah, so on that note, that's a little side note. Sorry if this was if I've got some tangents I'm taking with this conversation. Those that are listening to us, and as we've all learned in the community, if there's one way to do something in Tinderbox, there's probably 10. And we've just got to figure out within your personal context what's the most efficient way about going about doing things. And thank you for reminding me though, Mark. We can apply the stream elements to this for sure. And actually, your point, it might be actually more efficient to do it that way. All right, so what I've done here, let's take a big step back. What have we done? We've taken some highlights in a PDF file. We've exported those highlights out of the PDF file using a template that got us a standard patterned piece of text that we can break. I now know that I can explode these notes. I'll also add using the stream elements to explode those notes, because I think that's cooler actually. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these notes, and now I'm going to automatically apply my stamp saying parse skim notes. And what that does is that automatically goes through, parses all the notes, puts the page numbers here. There's no citation key. I'm going to tell you how I get around that in a minute. Tells me that's what this was a type. And if I click on this link, it will automatically open up the skim file and take me right to that page where that highlight happened. So that's how you export and send things out of SKIM. So let me pause there. I'm sure there are questions, because I want to now dig into the stamp and show you how I did that. But are there any other questions at this point?
Yeah, no, it's really great that you now have a round trip to annotated PDFs. Fabulous.
Yeah, and again, this works for nearly every PDF reader. I've done it with highlights. I've done it with SKIM. I've done it with there's 2 or 3 other PDF readers I've done it with. As Mark Bernstein had pointed out, the step 1 is get it out of the PDF reader, see what pattern it's giving you as part of the export. If you have the ability to modify the export pattern coming out of the PDF reader, and you can do so, do it, because you want to have a cleaner pattern like I was showing you here. Pull it into Tinderbox and then go from there. And once you kind of figure out those steps, kind of the rest of the world starts to automatically open up for you, which is pretty darn exciting. So let's dig into the stamp now. I'm sorry, Art?
For sure, and you can use it in apps like drafts and everything, anything before.
Yeah, it works. It works for pretty much anything. So once you kind of get the general pattern method, export out of something in a pattern that you know, pull it into Tinderbox. You can parse it to your heart's consent.
That's true.
That's kind of the magic. So let me dig into my stamp here, and if we have time later today, maybe we can play with interjecting the stream parsing as opposed to using the explode. So I'm going to just go through some pretty simple things. So what we're doing when I apply the stamp is I'm saying, Tinderbox, give me my P-note prototype. And then what I'm saying is, Tinderbox, take the type from the skim note, parse it out, and extract out after the type colon and a space all of the characters. And what I'm doing here with the RegEx is the dot says any character, and then the asterisk means to the end of the line. And then by putting it in parentheses, you're essentially giving it and some of my terminology might not be exactly correct, but it's generally what the meaning is. And then some of the parentheses is saying, grab me a back reference that I now can save that item for later if I want it. Okay. Now, then I created an attribute called ColorRGB. Now, what I might want to do in the future, and again, at the end of the time, maybe we can once I'm done, and I'm going to go a little bit faster because I want to use the last bit of our time to optimize this. Like I really think, and to make this portable, we should convert this color RGB not as an attribute, but as a variable. Because I think that would be a lot more efficient to make this script portable between Tinderbox files. But for now, let's just walk through what I've got, and then we'll spend some time optimizing this together. So I take the color and extract that out. I take the URL and I extract that out. I take the page number and I extract that out. And I take the text and I extract that out. So all of that's just a very simple extraction method. Now what I want to do is in order to get a name that's functional for me, I'm telling Tinderbox to make the name of the note a substring of the text. So I'm saying start at the 0 character of the text, which is the first character, go 25 characters in, and then add an ellipse. And that's what it's doing. So that's how I'm kind of getting this name for each of the different notes. Then what I'm telling Tinderbox to do is if there is a color .I contains, so if the color has if color has a color, what I want you, and remember, let me tell you why I'm doing this I contains. When I'm stripping out color, what I'm getting is all of this, right? And so what I need to do is I need to just grab this, which is actually a color designator. And so now let's go down to the parse, and you'll see it. What I'm saying here is if the color now .I contains that particular string, make your color red. And what this was, this was supposed to be orange. Okay. If it retains this color, our RSGP color space, make your color orange. If it includes this one, make your color yellow, make your color green. And I think let me go back to my original. I think I copied and pasted. This is yellow. So when I was doing, you can do some real-time fixes here. So that is going to be yellow. If it's this color, make it green. And if it's this color, make it blue. And if this color's, make it purple. And I'll go back to telling you how I figured out which color is which in just a minute. It's not magic. And then I'm saying grab your citation key from your parent. I'll show you that in just a minute. Make your name equal to the parent of the citation key. So what's interesting about this is when we exploded the notes, and let's go back here. Now that you see the stamp, let me go ahead and explode it again and see it. So you see here, the container here is named exploded notes. So when I go and apply that stamp, I'm getting the container name changed. So I'm essentially telling the stamp to change. So I don't have to, because if I can have the tool automate a step for me that I don't have to do that, by renaming this, I now can go ahead and change the note. And so it's renaming the name of the container to SKIM Notes 1015 for me, but I'm going to go back to one little trick that I'm doing. And if you noticed here, you'll notice how this note is not colored yellow, but this note is colored yellow. Well, the reason why that is if you recall, I just fixed the color yellow because there was a typo I had in there where it said 01. And so Tinderbox didn't know it, so it didn't know what, there was no match there, so it wasn't changing the color. So by doing that, I now have all of my notes. And so here's the great thing about this as well. Let's say now, and I'm going to do this on the fly because I was just thinking about it earlier. Let's say now if I have another prototype called P note or P quote, and let's give that, for the sake of visual affordance, quote mark. And now what we can go back into our stamp really quick and say, if color equals blue, then make prototype equal to P quote. Okay, so let's say for the sake of your note-taking methodology, anything in blue is going to be a quote. So let's go ahead and explode again. And this is just an incredible thing about the experimentation elements of Tinderbox. So all I know is now all of these are notes. If I go like this and I apply the stamp, right? And you'll see that it captured that one as blue and automatically made it a quote. So now later I can then do run agent, say, give me every quote from X, Y, and Z. So that, again, you can start incrementally refining your note-taking process as you go about doing that. Now, the one other thing that I want to share with you that I put into this file is, so I've got some notes that I pulled over from a document out of Tinderbox, but at this moment, I have absolutely no idea what these notes are related to. There's no citation, there's no author, there's no date, there's nothing that that supports that. So as we've showed you in previous, or I've talked about in previous sessions, I use Zotero as my citation manager. You can use EndNotes, you can use, there's a whole variety of different citation managers that are out there. And I created a agent for myself, or a function for myself called parse RIS. And so when you pull over a reference from a reference manager, what will end up happening is the reference manager will drop in what's called RAS. I'm not exactly sure what that stands for. Maybe Mark can tell us in a minute. And once I discovered that, just like I showed you with the parsing of the stamp, I'm now able to parse that RAS attribute that comes over when I bring over a citation from Zotero. So this is a stamp. I'll give it to you guys, or a function I've written that I'll give you guys at the end of the session. Now, when I watch what happens, when I drag this now over, my first step in my note-taking process is I drag the citation over, and you'll notice that Tinderbox has now dutifully parsed the entire RAS attribute coming from the note that was pulled over from Zotero. It automatically populated all of the attributes of that citation, including giving me a citation key, the author's names, the dates of publication, a URL, the abstract. I also have it automatically insert for me 4 questions that I always want to be asking myself. How does this answer my research question? What are the author's questions? What are the author's answers to their questions? And are there additional helpful details that I'm getting out of this document? And those are things that I might be asking myself later down the road. Now, because I've done that, let me show you the other way then I would go about parsing in this information. I can now pull in, and what I'm going to now do is I'm going to drop this note as a child of the reference I pulled in. And because I have an on add on this one, you'll see that any children I'm adding to this reference grabs the citation key. And so you'll notice when I pull this over, there's a citation key for this block of notes I'm pulling over automatically got pulled in from that referenced citation that I brought into Tinderbox. So now when I do the explode like this, and I now parse the notes and add my stamp, you'll see that every note now also has the citation key for the article to which this came from. And you'll notice that the name of the exploded notes also got the citation key. So now I know these are all notes from this particular article that I have taken on October 15, 2022. And there's one thing that I think is not working. This should, yeah, okay, no, it worked. And you'll see, and then, okay, that's why it didn't work. So the other thing is, you remember when I created this prototype P quote, I didn't bring over the attributes that I wanted displayed on that quote. So if I do that, you'll now see that P quote has the attributes too. So now we have the ability to say, as I'm taking my notes from a PDF file, so my step is in research is because I now know and intimately trust my process, because I've after months and years of wasted time, find an article I like, stick it in my citation manager, take the extra few seconds to make sure the citation is correct, the authors are there, the dates are correct, all of that. I take those extra few minutes to make sure it's right at the very beginning, because I know future self really well, and future self's lazy and never goes back. So if I take the step now in the beginning to do it right to the extent that I can, then anytime I have to go back, it's going back to correct errors that I may have interjected, not because I was lazy and didn't actually take the extra time. And what I've learned is it takes 5 times more effort to go back and repopulate than it does to fix a typo that I might have interjected into the process. So step one of my process, get the item into the citation as quickly as possible. Pull that item into my Tinderbox, or excuse me, get the citation in, read the article. If I've taken highlights in that article, and I now think, okay, there's stuff that's worthy of me Tinderboxing, what I'll then do is pull that citation over into Tinderbox, pull export the notes out of the PDF file, pull them into the PDF file, apply my stamp, and now I have all of this glorious wonderfulness to be able to work on. Now, the next thing that I might do is following what was his name? The guy who did the qualitative data analysis, Wilcox. The next thing you might want to be able to do is in Tinderbox, you would and from an analytics perspective, what I might then go ahead is start doing some qualitative data analysis against these notes, where I would drag them onto different attributes and start categorizing them and doing that next level of qualitative data analysis there. What I might also do when I'm doing this kind of research is I would go up here and I'd add, for instance, maybe a terminology, an attribute called term, so that when I'm reading the note, I'd say, you know what, this one is really about sales and profits. So then as I'm going back through the notes again, I can be further classifying or doing some qualitative analysis against these notes. So now then I can go through, and then later I can run agents and help those notes be discovered. So that's my process. Now we've got about another 40 minutes, which is great. So we could take some time collectively as a team to optimize this and discuss it more. But let me pause there because I think it's all of it's pretty cool.
Yeah, listen, really awesome and really beautifully delivered as well. Great.
Thank you. So comments, questions, thoughts, and if there aren't any, maybe we can do this and call this one number 2 and collectively go through the process of optimizing this stamp. Maybe turning that into a variable, and let's do that. Let's do this exercise of how we could go about possible. Oh, before that's the one thing I wanted to realize. What you'll realize, you'll take this over, you'll get super excited about it, and you're going to say, wait a minute, why are colors not appearing? And the one thing I found, which is and I'm sure there's a technical reason why they did this, but apparently not all yellows are yellow. There are different colors there. So when you're looking at your SKIM, you can go in and add any different kind of color you want. And what I found in the process of doing that is, because SKIM is not using SKIM is using sRGB and not RGB, you get these funky color namespace that's coming out of SKIM. So the way I figured that out was I just highlighted a document initially and gave every one of the colors to the document like that. So that's yellow, and I went like this: green, blue, and purple. So that way, and then I went ahead and hit export. All right, and I hit export, and now let's just call this one test 3. Test 2 is fine. Okay, and then I come to Tinderbox, and this is part of that kind of stepping through to figuring out what's going on stuff that you might tend to do. So then I went in here, and so then I compared the two documents, and I said, okay, color space 1101 is yellow. Color space, whatever that long string of numbers is, orange. And then we can get, and there's another one, then there's another yellow, then this is telling me that that's green, and then and so on. So now what I can do is, once I know what sRGB colors that SKIM is exporting for my particular implementation of SKIM, then I go into my stamp and I change these colors here. And the other reason why this is really important is one of the, how I figured this out was I was actually working with Doug Pinkerton, another one of our Tinderbox community members. And for him, he has a hard time seeing some of the colors. And so we were able to use this methodology to tailor the colors for his preferred choice of color scheme. Like, so he likes darker reds. He likes different kinds of scheming there. So this way you can adjust which colors you like and then apply them in your stamp to make it work for you. Make sense? Good. Yeah. All right. So maybe we can walk through and pretend, play with some optimization of this process, which will be kind of fun. So maybe we do variable string the color equals, and I think we can just do that. And as we're optimizing this kind of stuff, I've learned to not to delete things until I actually know I want to delete them, so I can just comment that out. Mark laughs because he's been there a gazillion times himself. And so now what we're saying is, since we're getting rid of RGB, I can now replace all of these with the variable. And by doing this, then this is going to allow the stamp to be transferable. Because one of the things I ran into when I was preparing this morning to bring this over, I spent about 25 minutes trying to figure out why this wasn't working. And then I realized it wasn't working because I didn't have a ColorRGB attribute in the file. And so by us optimizing this stamp with a variable rather than an attribute, then that's going to make one less thing that we have to carry over and make sure that's included in the file. So by doing that, and the other thing I learned from Mr. Bernstein is don't make too many changes at once to see if it works. So let's go ahead and bring in our dutiful new item. We hit explode. And now if that one change worked, we should be able to do this. Now apply our SKIM 2 notes, and it didn't, right? So now we have to see why that didn't work. So what did I do wrong? vColor.
It needs to be equal instead of double equal.
You're right. Okay, and so then we can go do that explode again. There you go. Right, so now we've dutifully parameterized color. And now let's think about what other
if you
out of this.
it occurs to me, if you added the stamp name as an action stamp command to the on add of the exploded notes prototype, that would run your stamp for you.
That would. Now the question would be.
Well, of course, it depends. If you've got different things, because what you can't do is you can't say when I explode, I want you to use
this prototype
as the child prototype. But you could do
but
that.
But for the sake of this demo, let's do that, because that's kind of cool anyway. Because other people may not know how to do that. So if we do an on add. All right. And we say stamp. And because I am a typo master, it's one of my skills. I'll copy the name. All right. So essentially what this on add is doing, it says, when I apply the exploded notes prototype, which will dutifully happen automatically when we explode the notes, go ahead and apply the stamp. So now if we do that, you'll see it automatically name changed and all the notes automatically parsed. Okay, that's pretty darn cool. Now, here's the other.
Because I love stuffing other people's inboxes, that means that when and if you ever have your action code for exploding, that's a nuance you might want to think about. You might want to chain it up to some particular code you've got stored, because depending on what you're doing, you might want a number of things to fall out from it. But this is very edge casey.
Now we could also do that with if we're doing a stream parsing. If we have time, we should probably play with that. But if we're doing a stream parsing, that would, you could then have it, stream the line, parse it, and then apply that stamp. And so that same kind of idea would work. I'm going to pull that out of here because that might people might not. I'll leave it there for now. It's fine. They can watch the video. So what else can we do to optimize this? Let's take a look. So we fixed color, and thanks, Chuck, for finding that immediate error. We do want to keep a type prototype because we want to keep the headlines URL standard. We want to keep a page number because that's important to us. Text is standard. Name is standard. There's not a whole lot we can do about colors.
I'm sure there's probably a function that you could pass the color bit off to. I don't suggest we do it now because it goes down a rabbit hole. But if you were in the situation where, you know, these maybe weren't your notes and you were being passed a rat nest, and you know everyone was using a different version of the colors, so you don't really, basically you want to say give me a value. You might think of basically putting that mess in a function, and that just saves you lots of one-off lines. But it's again, it's a matter of looking and seeing how messy the input is. In this case, you know what you're getting. There's no great upside to further formalization there, I think.
Yeah, and then you could, you know, parameterize this, the naming of this and that, but that's just, you know, eye candy. And citation key, if it's there or not, doesn't matter. You can end up calling this yourself something, but personally, I found, as I've demonstrated, you know, importing the notes without having some anchor to what article they came from is kind of useless. And so you either manually have to do it for each one, or you follow this strategy that I've developed, if that works for you, or some modified version of it, to be able to make sure that your notes, as I was demonstrating here, consistently have provenance of the original source document. Cool. So if we want to, we can practice the streaming idea and move away from just explode, and try to modify the stamp to do some streaming. Do we want to try that on the fly? Are we brave enough to do that? Chuck, and then somebody else had a question. Peter, you had your hand up for a while too. I missed that.
Oh, I was just. Hang on.
Yep, you're on.
Yeah, you're off mute, Peter.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to ask about how you come up with those color space numbers, and then you jumped right into it, anticipating my thought.
And there you go. Mental mind meld. That's awesome. All right, Chuck.
I was just going to say, following along what you're just talking about, using a function, since you have the concept of having the colors map to a type of note, even though you've got the type coming in from SKIM, that might be different than what you use. It's different means of tagging using the coloring. So you might think in terms of a function that handled both the color mapping as well as the tagging by color. And so that would be another reason for having a function, because that would make it something that would be separate, that you could then manipulate for whatever project you were working on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, if you wanted to, you could have like multiple functions in one function note if you were wanting to make that a little bit more too. And what we could also do too here is we could say, because right now SKIM is making all notes type is all note types coming out of SKIM are highlight. So I can also say here and change that, you know, so that when I actually know blue is a quote, make it the prototype quote and change this type to quote, just to continue to modify that refinement. All right. So are we brave enough to play with the Mr. Anderson? I'll probably need your help on this. We're brave enough to do it. Do we want to try to play with the parsing function?
Sure.
Yes, I mean, but well, part of it is that, I mean, the sRGB basically is, as far as I can see, is RGB and a white point.
No, I was thinking for the text. Do we want to try to play, rather than using explode to explode this, do we want to experiment with how would we use @line do this?
Good. Effectively, because the over pattern of this is you've got to detect, you need to do a look ahead, because you basically need to make sure that, because for every note you want to create, for every hashtag note section, you want to create a new note.
Correct.
So you've got to eat the right amount of the stream and create the thing it goes into, and then put all the right things in the right places.
let's stop right there. So steps. So first one is what do we want to do? We want to create new note at hashtag note. Sorry.
Yeah.
At that. So whenever we see that, what we want to do is we want to create a new note that then makes that a unique note. And then once that's isolated, we then can go parse it, correct?
Yeah, but yes, you might want to. I'm not sure what you were using for the name of the note. Were you using part of the text?
Every note, everyone's done this.
No, in your stamp. What?
Oh, I was using part of the text, but what we could now is we could randomize
anyway,
for now.
The thing you want to do though is as you go, it would be a good idea that when you create the note to not just make 40 notes called text, because somehow that's going to bite you eventually, because non-unique names, the application knows what they are, but you don't. There's scope for error if you have many things with the same name, because we think things and we don't say things. So yeah.
So on that note, and I know we can do this, what we do is when we create that new note, we'd want to incrementally give it a new name. Like, and for now, because we're going to change it later, once we know what the text is, we can give it some incremental number.
Yeah,
like,
you give it just a count.
Yeah, grab my sibling number and make it and have it be that name.
Yep.
So let's play with that. And then what we want to do once we've done that is we want to parse the note using stream. And I think that should be all right. So let's try to tackle step 1 first, creating the new note at the note. So if we have this note, and what we want to use is the create function so that when we see that line, we go create the note. Yeah, Peter, you had a question? You're on mute, Peter.
When you're annotating with SKIM, do you need to save a copy of the original PDF first before you start annotating, or does it save the annotation somewhere else so the original file will still print without the highlights?
No, super important. SKIM embeds the annotations in the PDF SKIM file, but it does it in some skimmy way so that if you open that PDF in another PDF reader, you won't see your highlights. So if you're highlighting in SKIM, you've got to keep being consistent in SKIM because they're not going to show up in any other PDF reader.
Actually, that's not true. They do show up in, for example, preview.
Okay, but okay, well, not in highlights or other PDF readers.
There are different PDF readers that use different schemes for with that. So yes, I agree. It's a general problem, but it's not a universal problem.
Yeah. So the term "all" was a misnomer, but I've not bothered with dealing with the inconsistency because it's not important to me. So, but
should I save a copy of the original PDF just to play it safe before I start highlighting in SKIM?
Doesn't matter. I've not found it to be an issue. Right. I mean, if to Chuck's point, either you'll see the PDFs when you open up preview, or you'll open it up and say Acrobat and you won't. It doesn't hurt the file. It just adds some more metadata into the file.
The only thing I can think there, Peter, is that thinking how these things fall apart is that if you were being a bit thrill seeker and you decided, well, I'll try out about 15 different highlighters and see how they all behave, I'd absolutely sure you probably managed to mess up the PDF somehow because they wouldn't mess. But generally using it with one, because that highlighter will generally jump to remove its own highlights. Worst case, you can roll back that way if you want to scrub the stuff out. So I doubt you need to take a copy and have yet one more copy that is then replicated forever to eternity.
Okay, so let's go ahead and play with this. So what we know, so if we're in here, and what I like to do personally is I like to start with stamps and then move the stamps into functions because that helps me kind of slowly figure this out. So let's go create note first. So that's going to be our create note stamp. And as a sample, the pattern we're looking for is this. So I'm going to put this over here so I can be thinking about that, and I'll delete this later. So what we want to do is we want to have Tinderbox recognize, and let's say there's another note down here. And so what we want to do, Mark, is we want Tinderbox to recognize this and create, basically copy everything from this up to that point and then create a new note. Is that what we're saying?
You could do. I mean, the good thing there is then if you do your stream parsing, you're streaming unambiguously on the content of one note. And so, for instance, you're not worried about detecting two URLs.
Correct. So how would we
stream
do that?
parsing? I think works best if where you worked out what the format is.
Right.
And the stream parsing allows you to pick those things out. If it's having to guess where a lot of stuff is, it's just making it sort of gets to the point where it's probably a law of diminishing returns, because you're having to add so many sort of guard clauses, as it were, into it.
Correct.
That you'll probably, it's more, making more work.
So if we were to write a stamp, so at some point we know we're going to use this, create, path and name, which we'll update later. And so what we, as a solution, so we can say variable string vpath, and we're going to have variable string vname. So those are two things that we know we're ultimately at some point going to want to have to populate. Right. And essentially then how do we tell Tinderbox to go to look at the note and grab that? Or are we doing it in the wrong way?
Well, you remember how we did last time? We went through the text and looked, no, leave that.
Okay.
We went through text bit by bit.
Yep.
And when we got to the next pound note, pound sign space, we know that we've gone too far and we make the note.
Right. So do I need to, can we remember how to do that, or do I need to open up what we did 2 weeks ago and look at
Well,
look at
I mean, I just described that. So how would you go about doing that?
I would use something like a line. So I would start
We're going
with
to go through each line of the text. So how do you go through each line of the text?
the text. Come on, text dot. I can't remember. I got to look it up. And then let's do it from the smart way as opposed to guessing. And this is why we have the Bible that is ATB ref. And we go down to here. Where's my ATB ref?
You've just gone past. There you go.
There it is. Okay, and I have it bookmarked to here, so I can just do a search. All right, so here's all the stream functions. And it's a line, right? Or it's line?
Each line.
Each line. Where is it?
Top of your screen.
Each line. There we go. So basically, we're going to pass in and say something like text.each line. Okay, there it is. So we can grab that example like that. Pull it over. And so we'll say text.each line, a line. And then what do we want to do? We want to make a number. So we can create another variable called string vtext. So what we'd say something like vtext equals, and we're looking for a pattern, right?
Well, you want to test the patterns. So you're going to first of all, you want to detect. So what if you follow this model? You're going to take the text. You're going to add each line as you go, but only if it's not the next marker. So you're going to have a wrapper that's an if.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have a text plus equals.
Right. So the wrapper is going to be the if. And then if it's going to do that, we're going to say the text plus equals. Okay. And then so we'll say text plus equals, and then whatever that is the a line.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't need
you might want to add a line break in because you're being fed it line by line.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Backslash n.
Backslash.
Yeah.
Or you may recall Mark had a neat thing of basically making a variable further up for whatever you want the backslash
yeah.
n part,
Let's
just to turn that
do
into a
that one.
variable.
VCR or V line break.
Yep.
All right. And then let's say V line break equals, and let's make it 2 ends just for fun. All right. So if we do that, we then can say plus V line break. So that way, by doing it this way, we can change our inline delimiter anytime we want, just by modifying this, as opposed to having to do everything else. So that's pretty cool. So now what we've done is we're saying we're going to go through the text. We're going to look for some pattern, and the pattern we're looking for is going to be, let's start with what the pattern we want is going to be pound note. And we'll have to do some delimiter here in just a minute. So it's this, if text dot.
It's a line.
What? Oh yeah, we don't need
line.
we don't need that. You're right. If a line dot I contains, right?
Yep.
Then I want you, so if a line contains that pattern, then I want you to grab the make v text equal to the pattern that's
No.
captured. No,
because if you're on a note that contains that, you're on the beginning of the note.
right.
So you need a double check. You need to know you've entered a note, and
Yeah.
you need to know that you've detected the end of a note.
Right.
So you need basically a variable that says I'm in a note, a Boolean, I guess, that says I'm in a note. So
right.
if so when you get a line that's a note, you don't really need that information because you're not
Correct.
going to use the line.
Right.
But you want to know that you're now in a note. But this is going to occur in two cases. It's going to occur at the first note and the second note. So you've now got to know that, right, I'm closing out the old note.
Right.
I'm sure someone with more programming expertise will do this more elegantly than me. Chuck or somebody.
Okay.
I believe what you want to do, if you contain a node, is see if you've already got some text. If there's something in v text, you want to make a note to hold it. If there's nothing in v text, then there's no need to make a note.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So the code that you currently have, vtext plus equals a line plus VLB, is actually what goes into the else clause.
Got it.
That's what you do.
Good
if
call. Right. If it actually has text that we want to keep, then we do
Yes,
that.
but you actually need to spell it else.
Yes, that's true too. Love you guys. Okay.
Now you need to make a note.
But I don't need, so if it's, but don't I need to have something here in the true? Or the,
Yeah, you want to make a note.
okay. So, but I would make the note down here.
No.
No.
Great.
I'll create note here. Got it. So I create that note, and where do I want it? And I can have what we need to do here is we variable equals string. Oh, we got vpath already. And so we can go up here and we say vpath equals path plus. If I do that, then that means it will make that note as a child to the current note. And now I need to give the note a name. And we can say name equals, how about note plus note space plus, let's just give it sibling order. Because right now we'll rename the note later. We just need it to have a unique name. So it's note plus whatever its sibling order number is. And so now that will then populate vname for us. So if we do that, that's actually going to create a note for us as a child of the current note, plus the name note plus 1 or 2, 3, 4. Do we agree with that? And Peter, you have a question or comment?
Oh, just wanted to note, I just did a quick experiment on the fly, and Skim can see highlights added by reader, but reader cannot see highlights added by Skim.
Got it. Got it. All right. So are we now? What's going to happen here?
So you need to set the name. You need to give that. You need to say you need to know what you're going to call the note.
And then what we could do here, we did vname as well. We'll do that. So we've already done that. We do that up here. The name of the note.
Right. Okay.
The name of the note's going to be this.
Yeah, that's just done once though.
Oh, you're right. So that's got to be
In the loop.
in the loop. So that's going to be down here.
We still need the variable declaration, but
Yeah, but I can do it there too. Or
No, you want the
No.
variable declaration to be declared before,
Ah.
and then you just set it in. You reset it in the string.
There you go.
If nothing else is clear that way.
clear that way, sure. Okay. So we've declared so we've set the note that this is a note. We know it's true. I don't think we need this, but maybe we do.
Oh, no, we don't. No, that was my bad guess.
Okay. So we set the name to note plus the sibling order, and then we go and create that note. And that note is getting created to vPath, which we've set, and to its name. Correct?
I believe that the arguments to create are first the name and then the path to the container. You
I just
might
checked.
want to double check
Let's double
that.
check. Let's double check.
It's actually path first and then name. But the first is what this is one of the rare operators where the first operator is optional. And my notes say that you don't actually have to provide the closing slash. In other words, Tinderbox say, okay, inside the container at path X, you want to put note name Y.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I had to test that relatively recently, a few days ago. So I think that's true.
So if
So in other words, you don't need the backslash on the end of your vPath.
forward slash.
The forward slash, sorry. Yeah, but I don't think it does any harm. I think Tinderbox is clever enough to realize, okay, I know what you mean. I don't,
Yeah. So you mean Mr. Bernstein / Harry Seldon can predict the future and knows when we're going to screw up?
Okay.
So the other thing you want to do is, because your name, you're going to be creating a number of notes. So what you want to do is, having made the note, because when you do create, you get back the path of the note. So what you want also is you want a list variable, and as you create each note, you're going to create the list with the path. Well, in fact, you want to store the path in the text, because then you iterate those. So basically, you make the notes, you give it yes, and you do that on the create thing, because then when you've iterated the first time, you now have a list of paths of notes you've made, and then you do a second through, and then you work with a set of notes, and then you do your note scope parsing.
All right. Well, what's going on here? Why won't it? That's weird. B list equal plus equals
Create plus equals create v. So that wants to go at the beginning of the line above.
No, it doesn't. Does it?
Yes, it does. Because what you're doing is, when you call create, what create gives you, if it's successful, is the path of the note it created.
So I need to populate that path in vlist.
Yes. So therefore, before create, put your cursor before create, in front of create, and type vlist plus equals. Now, what that does is it appends to your vlist. So at the end of the process, when you run through the whole source text,
I just was going to do it in 2 steps. I was going to create it and then do it, but you're doing it all combined. So by doing this, what it's doing is creating that note and then also populating vlist. So you're basically getting a twofer for that line.
So you can probably test that now, and you should get
So
4
we
notes.
would test it for, let's get some of this chaff out of the way here. So we've got a raw note, and we're now going to do that. And we got a V path, and we got a note 6. Okay.
I'm guessing that the just look at your code again. Right, you haven't actually set.
We didn't set V path.
You have, well, you have sort of set.
We set it up here, but not in the string,
Right.
much like name here. By the way, is this okay for everybody?
No.
Are you enjoying this?
Oh.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's still not working.
No, you didn't need to do that. You said so at the beginning, when you set a path at the beginning, you're saying this is, I want to use the path of the note that I'm processing at the moment. So
Right.
the path should be there. Why it's not doing at this point, I would simply check that I put literal values of the things you think you're using into a create and check it creates a note in the right place. If it doesn't, you save yourself out of the loop, wondering.
So what do you want me to do now?
So just make yourself a stamp that just says create. You need the test. You need to get back to the note you're in. You want to take. So create. Just copy the create, not the vlist, but the create. Give it the literal path of that note, which is forward slash in the name of the note.
Yeah, and
It's a root level note.
Make our
It's a
life
root
easier,
level
let's
note.
just go like that.
Okay. So that's forward slash test. No, you don't need a slash on the end.
I need that one there
Just-
though.
Yeah, and you don't have to. If it's a full path, you don't have to quote it, but it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter either way.
Okay. So if we do that, right? So we
Okay,
get a new
right.
note,
Now-
test new note, so we know that works.
The next moving part was you want to put the sibling order in,
Correct. So
but
let's-
it doesn't know at that point what its sibling order is, I suspect.
Correct.
Is that right, Mark?
Well, as written, you're referring to the sibling order of this.
Yes. Which is 6.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Which is fine because that we don't care at this point. We just want a random number that won't be duplicated.
No, because if it's referring to the sibling order of the note that's creating the new note,
Got it.
then the sibling order won't change.
So sibling
So
order.
you want an on add for the note you're processing.
Or you just do sibling order.
so
Oh,
it's
no,
a
that
sibling
won't work
order.
either.
After you create the note, then you should find its sibling order.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Or you could use child count.
Let's just use child count because we just want something simple.
Okay, it's 1 then, surely.
Yeah.
There you go.
Which one did you? Oh,
So now we've created all the notes.
okay.
So I just used the one that we just did.
Mhm.
All right, so now let's go back here. So now we've done this. We've successfully parsed all of the notes at the pound note line. Now we need to populate the notes with their respective blocks of text.
Did you move the changes that you just made in the test stamp back? into
Actually,
the-
all I did was change the child count note,
Okay, right.
and I moved the path down.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 changes we made. So that works. So now what we need to know, now what we need to do is how do we capture the text between the text of the A line note?
It's you want where you got vname, you want vlist.last.
Yeah. Okay, and so that's going to grab, because we've created this list, That list is each of the different notes. We have the name of that note, and now we're going to populate the text of vlist.last.
Yeah, which is the path of the one you've just added.
And I don't use the plus equals then in that case, right?
No. Oh, yes, you do,
Yes.
because you're adding it
Okay.
to the text. Yeah.
But you need to
But-
initialize.
But vtext is a local variable.
You're right.
Vtext is.
Dollar
and so
text.
Dollar text. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so that kind of worked. We got the text out, but we didn't get any of that.
Yeah,
Which is interesting. Why is that?
okay. Go back to the code.
Yeah.
Could we
So-
sorting the variable values away in attributes?
VLB is not being incremented. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. That's just your line break.
Yeah. So it's going through each line. And it grabbed.
What I would do is, instead of saving into the text of list.last, I would save it into vtext. And then after I create the note, then I would set the text all at once.
Got it. Okay. So instead of doing this, we do vtext.
No.
No. In the else clause,
Yeah.
instead of what you want to do is you want to say vtext
Then we got to very
equal
declare it.
plus equals.
Do we need to declare
vtext
vtext? Oh, we got it. Already have. Oh, you're right.
plus
Because
equals.
yeah, you're right. It's of course, because it grabbed the last line of text. That makes total sense. Vtext equals plus equals vlist. No,
No,
equals text.
No, equals a
No.
line. Just delete everything up to the next plus equals. You've got it on the next line. You've already got the code there. Basically, you're replacing $text vlist
that-
last with vtext.
Yeah.
Yep. And
This equals vtext.
no,
no.
that line goes.
Unnecessary.
Cut that. Go back to the line immediately after create.
Yeah.
Paste it. It's not what you want, but paste it. It's a good starter. Now, we want to put something in the text of the note we just created.
Right, which is what we're doing right here. Oh, but we did
That's
the last.
right. And what we want to put in there is, in fact, vtext.
Yep.
Okay. So tell me what to do. I'm not thinking. My brain.
After the close parentheses, delete the plus sign,
Yeah.
and then delete the rest of the A line plus VLB and just put vtext. So that's the accumulated text from the else branch. And you now said, right, oh, I've made a new note. Oh, wait a minute. At this point, we made a new note. What we want to do is we want the last but one note, because we've accumulated all the previous text. So if we put it into the last note, we're putting the text into the wrong note.
Right.
Correct.
So
No. We're doing the right thing.
Well, run it and see.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. No,
It's off.
it's off. Because the first one got nothing, and then the other one's got receiving
Accumulation of everything.
right.
Mm.
Okay,
Because yes, you need to zero out vtext when you write
Right.
it. So
Yeah.
after dollar text line,
After here, zero it
new
out.
line, then vtext equals semicolon. So you just know that you've. I'm sure there are other ways to do it, but that's
Or to
basically.
make it even clearer, just do that. Makes nothing.
Yeah.
You've put it elsewhere, and now you won't have your accumulator function running.
Okay, but now when I did that though, that created 0 got nothing, and then 1.
So
Interesting.
which notes?
Why are we
just
getting
look at
0?
note. Look at note 1. Look at the text of note 1.
5. So there's
And-
5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first note 1's getting 0.
Getting-
what is that?
You have the or confused.
well, that's
well,
fine, but
You,
why
you
is
kind of need to reverse the if and else clauses.
across all our full
Oh,
sample?
No. Oh, if you think about going through this as the computer, we're taking each line. So we start with the very first line, which we will take a look at. And we ask, does it have a pound note? And it does. So we make a note.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
we put vtext in it. But in fact, there is nothing in vtext yet because it's the very first line.
Got it.
So put in a test to see whether there's anything in vtext.
Got it. So up here, we'd want to do the test is so we've created the note. And we say if vtext equals, how about does not equal.
I'm missing an equal sign. But I think the problem you've got actually is you're applying you are seeing texts to the previous note rather than the one you've collected the thing for. Because
Correct.
No,
if you do
no.
that- yeah, you are, because that's why note 0 has nothing in it. Because when you say v last, that when we get to the second note, we want to write the first note's text, which we've accumulated.
Which is what happens.
V
If you
list
look here-
last is now the path of the second note because we just
if you
set
look
that.
here across all our full sample. is
So if you
right-
move
right here.
if you actually move your text above the create line, I think you'll find it works. Because at that point, vtext the list last is actually the one you just collected.
There you go. It worked. And
Well-
but now number 4 has nothing.
Correct.
How many notes are there?
There's 5 notes.
5.
5. Definitely 5. Okay.
And 3 is the GDPR. And if we go back here, we see 3 is the GDPR. So number 4 is not getting its text.
So you just at the end of the after you get out of the loop,
Yep.
Yes.
you need to add
Yep.
in that.
If you've got stuff left over.
Got it. So where do I do that? Just tell me what to do.
After text each line, because you've now read each line.
Up here.
After the curly brace.
Yeah, after the last curly brace, because
Down here,
you've
down
now
here.
run
Okay.
everything. No, you're still in the loop there.
Whoops.
So go
Oh,
down
I'm
to the
still in
bottom.
that loop,
Yeah.
right? So here.
Yeah, and then you can basically copy and paste the text v list last line. No, not that one. No. You're trying to set text, remember?
Yeah, that
That
one.
line is the one that you,
So we do that.
because that's the residue.
That's the residue, and that's going to go in the last note. And 4's got text now. Now what we want to do is we want to apply the stamp to each one of the notes we've just created.
Yep.
So,
So you can now take v list, because you've got a list of all the piles of the notes.
right.
And so we have v list dot each. and give it whatever loop variable you want. Okay. And then, well, if you have a stamp that does it, you can literally just say stamp name.
Right. Stamp.
Aaron,
Yeah, just a minute. Go because I don't want to do typos, right? So stamp this. And how do I tell it which name it is? What's the this is where we go to the ATB ref and
Which,
how do I
no,
tell?
what you're doing there is you're saying with the stamp, the note that I'm on which to do
Oh,
it.
got it.
Sorry.
Got it. So I put
Just-
the name of the note and then the
Yeah,
stamp.
sorry,
So
you want to put X, comma.
yeah, I go X. I was just trying to figure out where to do it,
Yeah.
right? So if I do that, whoops, what did I do? There you go. Wow. There you go. So rather than me complaining about not having explode at the beginning of the call, because I was a whiny little petulant child, we've now demonstrated how we can now, using a stamp, interrogate each line of the note and then apply our fancy parsing automatically. And then
Very
if we,
cool.
now that we've done that, if we start over and go back to my downloads and complete the whole cycle here, where's my downloads folder? So now if I copy this note into here, right there, come on. I want this one right there. And now apply our new fancy stamp to that. We now also get the citation key carried out throughout all of them. Dude, that is really cool. And amazingly, it is now exactly 10:30. So the timing of our call to have completed this end run in exactly the amount of time we had allocated is freaking amazing. And then if we click on here, it automatically pulls us right back to the skim note and where it was, and we're now full circle in the process. I got to tell you guys, this was really fun.
No, listen, it's, you know what's really crazy is when the code just got working, streaming code, I actually had a goosebump moment, which I never thought I would ever have in my life from watching code. And I learned the second thing, which is much more valuable to me, is that as you go along, you guys all make the same types of mistakes that I do. It's just that I take about 10 times as long to make those mistakes, and I basically give up about 1/3 of the way. So I never really cumulatively learn anything.
But Mark's point is the one to hold on to, is, you know, what's the computer thinking, not what I'm thinking, because it's not working because I'm not communicating to the computer what I think I'm communicating. So, and that's also why, also, if it all goes for naught, is just break out the particular bit where you think it's breaking, which is where we did that extra little test. So it's not making the note we thought it was. Why is it not making the, you know, are we using the wrong code, or are we feeding the right code the wrong information? And that's often easier done as a quick stamp or something. And then when you're confident that you've got, for instance, the code right, then you can begin to look at the thing. And the other really useful thing that's nestled in here actually is something that the other thing of using vlist last. So when you've got a list, being able, you know, just say, I just want the previous one. Well, if you know that a list is not reordered, so the last one you put in is the last one there. And that's something now we've been working on. I've been working on a number of these things with Michael. I find I'm using quite a lot, because I basically want to say you know, I want to do something with the last sort of parent, the last parent object that I added. And that's a really useful shorthand for that, without having to, you know, run some counter or, you know, previously I probably thought, oh, I better put the name of the last thing I created as a variable. And you could do that, it would still work, but it's just, you know, extra code you don't need.
Okay, now before we leave, let's do this one thing. I'm going to swap them around now. And I'm going to say our skim note code that we've just written is now a function. I'm going to create a new note called create note with function. Right, so using our stamp code that we just learned, I can do.
No, you don't.
No,
No,
no, no.
I don't want to do that.
No,
Well,
just
what I
call a
wanna do-
function.
What? Just call the function, right? Right. So now when I apply this stamp, that will call the function, which will trigger that function. But the other cool thing that I'm thinking is what we could do is we could have, yeah, that's what we want to do. What we want to do is we want to have this prototype trigger. We could have the prototype trigger the function. But we wouldn't necessarily want to do that because we only want to run this one time. We don't want it constantly running. Because
Why not when you do an on add?
Yeah. So
I'm
what I
thinking on that too.
so when I so essentially when I do want to do this, if I have this as an on add, which I already do. So can I do that?
But
So
you
I-
haven't added anything.
I know, not yet, but if I
But the function, you're trying to call the function that adds something
oh, yeah.
triggered by the thing it adds, which hasn't been added yet. So
Yeah, that
you
won't work.
torn off the
Okay.
branch you're sitting on.
All right, we can play with that later.
Yep.
But I'm sure there's a way to when I pop something over and I add a prototype called skim node, it triggers everything and makes it go off. But we're out of time now. We can deal with that later.
If you do want to, my thought, if you were tempted to use a rule there, I'd use an edict because you don't.
Yeah.
The thing is, the edict always runs at least once when
Yeah.
first invoked, and then doesn't immediately run again. So if you've done something horrendously unintentionally stupid, it won't keep reminding you every couple of milliseconds that you have made a bad mistake.
Yeah. And the other
Also,
thing we learned about
just-
today too, hopefully, was just, one, the optimization, because by doing this makes this stamp function more easily copyable from one note to another.
Yeah.
Which is an important step. And then when we were actually creating the initial stamp, we started thinking about the variables that we'd want and what would need to get passed to where, and started pre-populating those, and then kind of started backfilling, which I thought was another thing we were doing that was I find kind of useful. And then the last thing is to make code readable. Mark has taught me to make sure you do the appropriate indents, so that, for example, you can say this if aligns with that close, and and then that actually, to get that aligned, this should go back slightly here. So now when you're reading the code, you can say this if leads to that else, which closes that if. And so that kind of helps you read the code a little bit better.
And if it gets really gnarly, it's not lovely to have the code coloring as well here. There's some kind person in the forum whose name escapes me shamefully, who has written a code sort of coloring module, syntax module for BBEdit. So if you've written yourself a really gnarly long bit of code, because one extra affordance you'll sort of get there is just that you can have sort of line numbers, and you can actually close things like if statements, because it'll collapse them for you. Which it's pointless trying. There's no point to do it inside Tinderbox. But if you get to the point that you've created something that's that long and has that many branches and things in it, you may find if it doesn't magically work first time, you can punt it out to there, and you can still have effectively, the sort of some of the syntax coloring that you see here.
All right. Well, how'd that go for everybody today?
Great session.
Fantastic.
All right, let me get everybody's names before we all leave so I can keep track of this, and we know who attended, and I will catch you guys later. This was fun.
The names of the innocent have been omitted, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Take care, everybody.
All right. See
Have a
everybody.
good
Hey, Mark,
week.
you want to hang
Bye-bye.
out for me?
I will do, yep.
All right, and stop.